Hello students, today we will discuss a topic of class 7, subject chemistry, chapter 7, air and atmosphere. Students, in the previous video we have discussed the first and second key concepts of this chapter, that is atmosphere and nature and composition of air. Let us see what we have discussed in the previous video. Atmosphere. What is atmosphere, students? The blanket of air that surrounds the earth. The blanket of air that surrounds the earth is called atmosphere. In the second key concept, we have discussed what are the different gases that are present in air. Let us revise. Nitrogen 78%, carbon dioxide 0.03%, inert gases 0.9%, oxygen 21%, water vapor 0.04%. Today we will discuss the third key concept, that is air is a mixture and not a compound. Let us see how is air a mixture and not a compound. Air is a homogeneous mixture of several gases. Following are the evidence confirming that air is a mixture and not a compound. Point number 1. The composition of air is not constant everywhere. It varies from place to place and time to time. For example, in high altitude, oxygen is less. In hilly areas, the amount of oxygen is less, but in low altitude, in plain areas, oxygen is more. Then in summer season, there is very less humidity, water vapor content is less in the atmosphere, but in rainy season, the amount of water vapor is more in the atmosphere. Since air is a mixture, the constituent varies from place to place and time to time. But in a compound like carbon dioxide, the constituent is always the same. In carbon dioxide, one carbon atom and two oxygen atoms. This is the constant composition of carbon dioxide since it is a compound. Second point is there is no energy change while the gases are mixed to form air. When air is formed by mixing of gases, there is no change in the energy. For example, if we mix oxygen with nitrogen, water vapor and other gases, there will not be any energy change. But when carbon reacts with oxygen, if there is chemical reaction between carbon and oxygen, a new compound will be formed, that is carbon dioxide, and there is a change in energy in the formation of a compound. But since there is no energy change in the formation of air, so we can say air is a mixture and not a compound. Then point number 3, the constituents of air retain their individual properties. First of all, we will see how in a compound the constituents lose their properties. For example, hydrogen burns or catches fire itself. This is the property of hydrogen. Oxygen supports burning. This is the property of oxygen, that it supports burning. But when hydrogen and oxygen when they react with each other to form a compound, water. Water is formed which neither burns nor supports burning. The property of water is completely different from the property of hydrogen and the property of oxygen. This property of water is completely different from the properties of its constituents. Since water is a compound, so the constituents properties are different from the water itself. But when oxygen mixes with water vapor, nitrogen, etc. to form air, oxygen does not lose its property to support burning. It continues to support burning after mixing with air also. Thus, we can say that constituents of air retain their individual properties. Point number 4. Air is not represented using a chemical formula, whereas compounds have a definite formula. For example, formula of a compound carbon dioxide is CO2, but constituents of air is written as oxygen, water vapor, nitrogen, etc. So, air does not have any definite formula since it is a mixture. Then point number 5. Simple physical methods can be used to separate the components of air, whereas it is not possible to separate the components of compounds using simple methods. To separate air, we can use the physical method like fractional distillation. But to separate components of compound, we need chemical reactions. Students, I hope you have got an idea how air is a mixture and not a compound. Students, your assignment is that you have to read the chapter up to where I have taught. Thank you.